This is basically a water storage facility for hydro dams down on the Kennebec. There's a dam on this lake, but they don't generate power out of this dam. Now this is the north branch coming in, the south branch coming in behind us, and just ahead is where they form the Deb River. Because all the way from here down through, there were farms along the river bed. And then in the village, there were probably about 350 people, and at the end, there were probably about 180 left. So it wasn't until 27 that they got permission to start buying property by eminent domain. They actually just bought land as it came up for sale. It wasn't until about the end of World War II, 45 they applied, got the license for the dam, and then 46 started construction of the dam. 48 and 49 they had about 1,000 men in the valley cutting all the trees, and at the same time they had a push on. They started going around making people offers on their farms and houses in the town. And by the fall of 49 they closed the gates on the dam, and by the summer of 50 the lake was filled up. But this is also the route that Benedict Arnold took on his march on Quebec. And right along in here was Arnold Falls before they created the lake, and it's one of the places mentioned in his journal as a camping area. And so Benedict camped in this vicinity, and then farther up by the Cathedral Pines. And then down where we turn around is called Hurricane Island, and to the best of my knowledge it's called Hurricane Island because that was where they were when they were hit by a hurricane and lost the majority of their supplies on their trek. And by the time they got up here, they were pretty much in a starvation mode. But directly ahead, it looks like a rock over there, but that's a floating raft. And that's a raft that the biologists put out for loons to nest on. Loons have difficulty walking on land, so if they build their nest on the shoreline, they drop the water levels, the loons abandon the nest. So they have 6 or 8 of those floating rafts spread around the lake. Now up until the 70s, they could do log drives down the lake, and they did log drives on the rivers. And this was the booming up area where they'd boom up the log rafts to tow down the lake. They'd take 15 to 20,000 cord of wood down at a time. They had 2 shallow draft tugboats that worked this end of the lake, and then they had a deep draft tugboat that would come up from the dam and meet them about halfway down where the water starts to deepen. Now up in here in this corner, and you can see a 10 up in there, that's the end of the road that comes out from School Street, and that's the beginning of Bigelow Preserve. So the rest of the way down the lake, it'll all be Bigelow Preserve on this shore. So you can drive that far, and then there's a gate across the road. You can't go any farther. Now before they created the lake, Route 16 used to come up through the lake and come in, and it would connect to that road there and go into Stratton. Once they created the lake, they moved 16 down in New Portland, send it over to Kingfield, and then connected to 27. And then branches off over the range in Stratton. So this is all preserved land. This is the end of the Bigelows, the little Bigelows. And if you can just barely make out a couple clear cuts down on the end, up on the hills, those lighter green patches are clear cuts. So that's paper company land, but the shoreline is still preserved land, and it's about a 500-foot buffer. And then the state, 5 or 6 years ago, bought a 500-foot conservation easement on the north shore. So so other than what we've seen develop today that's in private hands, this lake shouldn't develop any more than it is now. So it's kind of like being in the Great North Woods. We haven't seen a whole lot of
development, and luckily this lake will stay that way.